Crypto has been going up these past few days, and everyone is asking, is the bottom already in? Today on the crypto market update, we're going to try to answer these questions and see where exactly Bitcoin's at right now and where crypto is heading in the next few months. So without further ado, let's just get into the charts. So this is a chart that we've been following so far. We drew like a lot of lines here, but don't be intimidated. I'm going to explain everything. So this is basically just the price of Bitcoin in the weekly view. And we have these moves that we drew just to see how previous cycles have performed from top to bottom, right? And we also have these Bollinger Band channels that just show short-term kind of momentum, right? The first thing that we notice is zooming in, like right now, Bitcoin is at $66,000, right? And it came from a low at $58,000. And you can see that this was like sort of a level that it was at even before, right? So back in June, actually, we said that we would go all the way up to this middle band, and now we're all the way up here. And that move actually played out. So now that we're here in the middle band, where is it going to go next? Given that we have this short-term like support, I feel like we're just going to get slowly squeezed into this channel, and then it's going to make a decision whether or not it's going to break up or it's going to break down, right? So right now, this was a pretty predictable move going up into this channel. Now the next thing is it's going to probably go down and get squeezed. So I think that's what's going to happen for August is it's just going to slowly go down into a negative August, and then in September it's probably going to make a decision. That's what the short-term channels look like. These other bands that we drew are actually time-based moves. So in the previous cycle, it took 51 bars from top to bottom in the weekly view, and the cycle before that also took 51 bars, and the cycle before that took 60 bars, right? So if we just put 51 bars from the cycle top, that puts us around October 12th, right? So if it does make a decision, if there was like one big kind of like crash like this in September, that would put us going into October negative, right? And these top ones are the same. We're just drawing peak to peak. So from peak to peak, this was like 211 bars. From peak to peak, this is also 211 bars. And we did the same thing from the bottom. So bottom to bottom, 204, 208, 208. So if we just did that, the next bottom, from bottom to bottom, if we're just going to do 208 again, 206, 200, this is going to be around October, right? So September and October timeframe look like to be the most high probability that Bitcoin is going to enter its final downturn, right? We see it getting squeezed here. It's negative momentum. It's going to go down. I'm going to show you guys a few more charts. So this one is actually very interesting. This is the fear and greed index. So basically, when it's up here, the market is greedy. When it's down here, the market is fearful. And what you notice is on the on the short term, it's pretty noisy. It goes up and down, up and down. But in the long term, like you can kind of see a shape where it's sort of following highs during highs and lows during lows, right? And this actually allows us to see short-term moves in Bitcoin. So if we just go to the last year range, this is a pattern that we've been looking at for months, and this is how we called actually the June crash. So what happens is the top part is the price of Bitcoin, the bottom chart is the fear and greed index. You can see during these stretches, these plateaued stretches of Bitcoin, like just consolidating sidewards with a slight uptrend, the fear and greed index actually tends to go up. So what happens is usually Bitcoin has a big crash and the fear and greed index plummets, then it plateaus and the fear and greed goes up, and then it actually hits like some kind of peak. And then once it hits this peak, that's actually when the next crash is going to happen. So this is how we predicted the June crash, because in June, actually, we were seeing this go up, right? So we had this crash in January, and then we were just following this plateau, and it's like, wait, what's happening? It's kind of following this same January move, and then it went all the way up slowly, and you can see the fear and greed index going up. And then once the fear and greed index went up, that's actually the signal where it kind of started to go down, right? And this is actually playing out again. You can see now we're at this, once we're actually in this range, now we're actually starting to go up, and the fear and greed index is actually going up. So what I'm thinking is going to happen is this is slowly going to go up, and then there's going to be another crash. So this just looks like a staircase pattern, right? So flat, slight uptrend, down, flat, slight uptrend, down, and now flat, slight uptrend, down. And actually, if you zoom out to like the 2-year view or the 4-year view, you can kind of see this sort of rough sine wave kind of pattern, right? And during a bear market, what happens is the peaks are getting smaller, right? So this peak to this peak is smaller. Of course, the price here went higher, so it's not perfect, obviously. But from this peak to the next peak, it got lower. And from this peak to this peak, it got lower. And then from this peak, probably the next peak will be a lower peak, then it's going to go all the way down. If you look at zoom out in the 10-year view, this is what it's looked like, right? So peaks are getting smaller, and that usually indicates the price actually collapsing to lower prices. And during a bull market, which we're not at, you can see that peaks are getting higher in the fear and greed. So this is one signal that's actually showing us that probably we're quite near going into like this next bottom. Yeah, so I think July will end positive, and we're at 65K. August will probably end negative. I'm not sure if it's gonna break this, but in September is probably the decision where it's either gonna break this 58,000 support. And another reason why we were talking about this is, if you didn't watch the previous video, we were just talking about the monthly returns. So this is basically the return of Bitcoin for every month. And in the column wise, you can see the average. You can see September is actually the worst month for Bitcoin at -4%. And if you look at August, it's actually, I think, the third worst month. Yeah, so it's the third worst month at positive 1.6%, but only because 2017 had a really high positive month, right? Most of these months actually negative. So I think 9 out of these 13 months were negative. So probably we're going to end August negative, and September is probably going to be the bigger crash. This actually also worked out for June when we were talking about the fear and greed pattern, and we also see that June is actually quite a negative month as well. So that's where we're at. Yeah, there's other indicators that kind of say this. I wrote actually a article about this in the website Lofi-Ledger.com, when Bitcoin will bottom. And this is a living article, so it updates every day. But basically, it just shows how you're predicting the bottoms at these different time ranges. And actually, one interesting part is this days to cross. So historically, there are different types of drawdowns. So you can see, for example, in 2014, predicted drawdowns were like 98% and 92%, then 84%, and now 2026 is 76%. Drawdowns are actually getting smaller in Bitcoin. Like if you look at these top and bottom bands, so this is the price of Bitcoin, you can see the ranges are getting narrower and narrower. So Bitcoin will get less and less volatile, right? If we extrapolate that pattern, we can expect at around a 70% drop. And if we look at all 70% drops in the price of Bitcoin, this is what it looks like. So these are lines that actually show how many days from this point did it drop 70%. And if there are no lines, those prices never experienced a 70% drop. But now what we can see is in this chart, all these things with like yellow lines are all the days where that price went down 70%. And you can actually average that. So if we average all 70% drops, we have an average duration of around 385 days. And if we project 385 days from the previous cycle top, that actually also puts us around September. So here it says that if you look at the price model, the bottom will be around 40K, and the expected day at which that happens is on September 20 on average. But there's like a big delta here, plus minus 120 days. The first prediction method gives us at around October 25th, and that's also what we're getting in these two methods, right? We see that the drop will probably be in September, and then this bottom to bottom indicator is saying at around October or November. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. Looks like it's playing out exactly as we've predicted it to play out. August, probably negative month. July, positive month. September, probably negative month. And just to convince you further, if we go back to the website, you can actually see these all-time high clusters. So this is like a clustering algorithm that I ran, and it identifies when the next market cycle top is, or identifies historically where the tops and bottoms are. You could actually eyeball it, but I wanted it to be more mathematical. So here you can see that these were the identified tops. The previous top was right now at 124K, right? And now we're searching for a bottom, right? So it's fully red if it's a bottom, but right now it's still going down. And we'll only really know if it's the bottom once we reach new all-time highs. So what this chart is actually good for is counting the number of cycle bottoms there are before we reached the bottom. So for example, in this high, how many times did the price crash to a new low past this cycle high, such that it'll eventually reach the lowest point and then it goes back up, right? So this is what this chart actually shows. Here in cycle 1, I mean, there was no cycle high, so we can ignore this. So, but in cycle 2, it took 22 crashes for Bitcoin to find the bottom. In cycle 3, it took 41 crashes for it to reach the bottom. And then at cycle 4, it took 38 daily crashes for it to reach the cycle bottom. For context, right now we're at 27. So we're more than cycle 2, but in terms of cycle 4 and cycle 3, we're not there yet. Cycle 4 took 38 unique crashing days to reach the bottom, and cycle 3 took 41. Right now we're at 27. So a lot of these things are kind of showing us that if Bitcoin follows historical cycles and historical patterns, it is still going to take a few more months probably for it to reach its decisive bottom, right? Here it's saying it'll probably take 9 more crash days, and this one's saying it's going to take like 14 more crash days, right? So yeah, some of these moves take quite long. So I know a lot of the time we have this emotional response that, oh, can it just happen? Oh, Bitcoin has been going up. I should go all in already. And this is really why we have to look at the data, because it gives us a clearer picture of the market instead of just emotionally going into a lot of these moves. Like if you were just basing it off emotion, you would just basically be buying into the fear and greed, right? Every time this greed goes up and you bought, that's actually the time where you would have lost money in the short term, right? Because like here, when the greed went up, of months of Bitcoin not doing anything, that's actually when it started going down, right? So don't fall into these traps. It's very easy to just want it to be over with, but the market doesn't care what you want it to do, right? The market is separate from your emotions, and it's important to be able to look at the data in order to navigate what kind of moves the market will be making. So yeah, that's just a quick update on where it's gonna go. I think Bitcoin will probably find a bottom at late September, like around September 20, and or early October. According to the calendar, September looks like the most likely day where it's gonna happen. Yeah, September looks like it's the most likely day it's gonna happen because it's the lowest month. October and November are actually very positive months, right? They're pretty strong months. So probably if it crashes in October, it's gonna probably be in early October, and it's probably gonna go back up. Yeah, so that's where my head's at right now. If you guys find these charts useful, you can go to my website, Lofi-Ledger.com. It's all completely free. There's also a chat bot where you can actually just ask it, like, when will Bitcoin bottom? And it'll actually just answer your questions for you. It's going to look through the data, the charts, and the articles that I read and wrote, and it's going to give you the answers that you guys need. I also actually launched an app, so the app's also completely free. This chat feature, however, isn't free because I am unfortunately spending tokens. Like a lot of these AI things aren't cheap. So if you want to use the chatbot, there is price, but everything else is free. Like you can look at all the charts. You can just watch my channel so that you can consume the information. But yeah, if you want to support me, like and subscribe, download my app, or get a subscription. That would be great. But yeah, hopefully you guys are more prepared for this coming months. I think September is going to be a huge, huge opportunity. This is a once in a 4-year opportunity, right? The bear market only lasts once every 4 years. And so this is actually the biggest opportunity to make the most money. So I'm pretty excited for the next leg down. I'm saving a bunch of capital that I can deploy. And yeah, if you like this video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.